The purpose of this video is to explain a braking technique, train handling technique, called cycle braking or cyclic braking, using the Westinghouse Airbrake. So this technique is used on continuously falling gradients. That is, long sections of a downhill grade where you'll have to make more than one brake application, usually two or more, to control the speed of the train. So in this case, we're going to use the section of track from the top of Elevator Hill down to Mulberry Flat on the Swanbank to Box Flat section. So the speed of that section is 15 kilometers an hour. Now, we're not going to really talk about overspeed so much in this video. I'll mention it. The topic of actual overspeed is for another video. This one's just about controlling the speed of the train. So, this simple graph here just shows the vertical column as your speed in kilometers per hour, and the distance, even though it's not graduated, you get the idea. The further away you go from zero, the further you've traveled. So, starting from a zero speed limit, even though I know when you reach the top of the grade you're already doing close to 15, but we'll go from Swanbank Station. So off you go. Your speed is increasing, it's accelerating, and then when you get, somewhere between 10 and 13 k an hour, somewhere there, you put the air brake on. You move the handle to the minimum reduction or lap position. So if we stay on the green line, number one is where the brake pipe reduction has actually begun. Now, even though the brakes are coming on, it takes time for that deceleration to actually slow down and stop accelerating. So as you can see, the line starts to turn, and it goes towards, this is ideally, a peak of 15 kilometers an hour. So you're no longer accelerating. You've just peaked, and now you're starting to decelerate. So the green line continues to the right as you travel along downhill. And the speed is falling, and at some point, what have we got there? Somewhere about 12, 13 k an hour again. The drivers move the handle to the running position. We're only a short train, so we're not using release. So they've moved the handle to the running position. So brake pipe is now beginning to be recharged. But even though the brakes are starting to come off, they're still taking effect, but the effect of that application is now getting less and less and less as the brake shoe pressure is reduced on the wheel. So as you can see, after number 3 there, where the handle's been moved to release, the speed of the train is still coming down, but then once the brakes are fully released, you're still downhill, you're at the bottom of that curve. Now you're still downhill, so the speed starts coming up again, up and up and up. So we get to the first black dot there on the second curve, and again, you would apply the brake. It takes effect at the peak, fully takes effect at the peak there, and then once your speed has come down enough, you release the brake and keep going. So that's why it's called cycle braking or cyclic braking, because it's a continuous cycle until the grade flattens out or changes to an uphill direction. Now, the other thing that's happening is when you release that brake, you want to release it at a speed that will allow the train or train brake pipe to fully recharge before the next application has to be made. So the steeper the grade and the heavier the train and the longer the train, you'd have to release the brake at a slower speed to allow time for the brakes to not only release, but for brake pipe to recharge and be ready for the next application. If you release the brake too early and your speed comes up too fast, well then you've got to apply it again. Fine. But if you release it again too early and brake pipe hasn't fully recharged, you're constantly taking out more air from your brake pipe and, more importantly, your auxiliary reservoirs than you're putting back in. And that leads to runaway trains because you have no more air in your auxiliary reservoirs to push the brake shoes against the wheels. And that's what led to the Camp Mountain Railway disaster. Now, so that's ideally, that's the green line. Unfortunately, what happens for a number of reasons, railways around the world, distraction, attitude towards speed, that sort of thing, whatever. The speed will start from 0, so it's the green line. All is good. Downhill, downhill, downhill. Speed is picking up, it's picking up. But we depart from the green line and we reach the orange line. So the speed has now gone over 15 and the driver decides, oh, I'd better make a brake application. Fine, that's distraction. Or, better put the brake on. That's just attitude. They put the brake on close to 20, we'll say, sometimes higher. Speed comes up. It peaks about 20 or thereabouts. Starts to come down, Oh, I don't want to go too slow. Or, oh, I'm going to lose time. As you can tell, those two things are just two different views, two different attitudes. Some well-meaning, some not so much. So the brakes start to come off. The speed drops, it starts flattening out. The brakes are fully released, and in this case, fully recharged. But then the speed starts coming up again. Look, it's only barely reached 15. Now your speed's coming back up again. Reaches around 20, back down towards 15. So the orange line represents constantly going over speed and back to the limit, over and back. What we're looking for, ideally, is the speed coming up towards the limit, reaching the limit or thereabouts, and then back down. Yes, the green line does mean a slower journey, but it also means you're fulfilling your obligations as a professional driver and controlling the speed of your train according to the limit. Now, I've got another video coming up where we talk about overspeed and all that sort of stuff, how much is allowed and all that. But this one is just about the braking itself. If you follow that, all things being equal, in theory, your train will never go over that 15 kilometers an hour limit, and you'll never overspeed. That's the theory behind cycle or cyclic braking on a continuously falling gradient. I hope you find that useful.